Thank you, Phyllis. Greetings to everyone that showed up today. Thank you for coming. Greetings to those online or listening later. All are welcome here. Today our theme is the prosperous path, abundance, reflection, and history. Would you join me in reading our affirmation, which is, I walk the prosperous path with faith and intention. I release what no longer serves me and reflect on divine abundance within. As I honor wisdom, embrace renewal, and trust divine provision, I open to limitless blessings. I am guided, supported, and abundantly free. Thank you. You're welcome to stand to join to sing our welcome song, if that's comfortable. So please join us in We Were Made for These Times by Angela.
That was written by one of our members of this congregation, Angela Gabriel. I don't think she's here this morning, but when you see her next time, go, thank you, Angela.
Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Namaste moment. Let's take a time to think. If you realize Phyllis has played for the prelude all songs written and composed by women or just composed?
Composed.
Composed by women. So we started with Enya, Orinoco Flow. I don't know, I was grooving to that. What did you do last week?
Doris Akers.
Doris Akers. And today, so we are continuing our Women's History Month celebration. It is good to see all of you. And so now is the time to release the children. They are going to Auden and Patty, who are in the back. And I will warn the parents, your children will probably come with glue on their clothes because Patty has got a ginormous arts and craft project. I'm wearing my owl today because wisdom is our theme, and owl is the nature animal that the children are working with. And so I forgot to warn you ahead of time, but glue will be on their clothes. And then let's just take a moment to rest in this truth. I know we always say, I see the God in you, or the God in me recognizes the God in you, and that's what we do in Namaste time. But how do you really see God? So think about the love that you have received in this congregation. That was God. the hugs that you have received in this congregation. That was God. The yummy, yummy food that you have received in this congregation. That was God. The safe and welcoming space that this congregation is. That's God. God is all around and within us. And so today, as we greet one another with hands at our heart, remember, you are God. And so it is. Namaste. And you're free to move about the cabin.
Can you do that backwards, David? I couldn't walk at all. So cool.
Now I know why it takes so long to get back. It was fun. I wanted to greet everyone. And so we come to our time of prayer today, and I begin it with a heart full of gratitude for all the prayers that have been sent to Gail and I. Got text. She said to say hello to everyone and to thank you for your prayers. And my heart is overjoyed. Thank you. So we come to this time of prayer. So I'll tell you the other reason you need to pray is to pray for me because Gail is feeling better. So sassy this morning that I had to threaten her. I said, well, do I need to get Donna Johnson involved in this, who was my mother? She's like, no, don't call her. And then as I left, I said, you know you and Lily usually gang up on me, but when it comes to your health, Lily will gang up with me. And then I said, I will also invoke Kathy Kinsman if I have to. So I'm threatening her. So she's feeling better, and I'm glad. When we come to our prayer time today, Seb, I want to share something that was shared with me this week, which kind of is a strange image. You're like, Tab? Yes, I discovered a new soda. No, that was the soda when I was a kid. But this week, with Gail being in the hospital, I tried to minimize my meetings, but I needed to meet with the special dispensation person. That's how I am here and going through the process of becoming Unity ordained. And I said, I'm sorry, I don't know about the Wi-Fi, I'm in the hospital. And we went through the whole thing. She says, well, why are you in the hospital? I said, oh, my wife is getting the treatment, I'm very happy about it. And she says, well, do you know about tabbing? There was a Unity minister that introduced the concept of tab, when tab was a real popular soda. Totally accept and believe. And she ended our conversation with me, I totally accept and believe that Gail is cancer-free. And I was shook by those words. Because I was like, yeah, just beat it back into remission. But she brought me to a higher level. Totally accept and believe. And so today, what can we tab together? What can we totally accept and believe that in times like this, golden souls like us will rise up and shine a light? Can we totally accept and believe that this country, which has, in its midst of its mess, has been a light and a beacon, that it can return to that? That can we totally and accept and believe that our own personal issues that we push off and say aren't important, that those things too can be resolved to our highest good? Can we totally and accept and believe that soon that parking lot will be so full of people that we'll have to ask Kroger, can folks park over there? Or I guess the library, because it's closer. Can we believe that? And so today, as we come into prayer, bring that tab energy. What is it that we can all totally accept and believe? And by joining me in a breath in and out, we totally accept and believe that all is possible, that all is well. And so it is.
Place where God lives, moves and breathes and has its being. I am the place where God shows up. I am the place where God lives, moves and breathes and has its being. I am the place where God shows up. Sometimes I wonder and ponder, only to realize I'm not alone. There's nothing I have to do on my own, because I am the place where God lives, moves and breathes and has its being. I am the place where God shows up. I am the place where God lives, moves and breathes and has its being. I am the place where God shows up.
Thank you.
Thank you, Phyllis. I know when I park my car, sometimes I got to back up and put it back in straight, so I'm reparking my car here. So our inspirational reading today is from the Lent booklet. There are ones out there if anybody needs any, in the garden, entitled Jesus Prayed No Matter What. Matthew 26, verse 39 says, "And going a little farther, he threw himself on the ground and prayed." This may not seem remarkable. After all, Jesus continually went off by himself to pray. But remember the circumstances. He was facing death. He knew why Judas had left the group of disciples at supper. He knew his arrest was imminent. And he knew the Romans had a particularly gruesome way of executing prisoners by nailing them to a cross and waiting for them to die. How many of us would have the presence of mind to pray if we knew soldiers were on their way to arrest us for execution? Consider such a fate. We might pace, we might wring our hands or cry, we might run or freeze, or just, talk a blue streak. So sometimes we're so upset it's hard to remember to pray, to become calm enough to pray. Once again, Jesus models for us a spiritual response to horrifying human circumstances. He prays. Prayer can be a first resort and a last resort when we are facing uncertainty. We don't beg God for help, although sometimes that's all we can utter, but instead we pray to recondition our consciousness. We pray to remind ourselves that we are never separate from God, to feel that clear connection and presence. We pray to strengthen our faith and affirm that we live in a universe of good. We pray to acknowledge that we don't always see the spiritual reasons behind the events in our lives or the world, but we trust they are there. We might even pray to remind ourselves that we agreed at a soul level to be in this place and time, and to ask for guidance on what we are to do or learn. The point is that even Jesus, with all his divine awareness and capacity for spiritual understanding, turned to prayer in his darkest hour. If it was meaningful for him, surely it can work for us. So we have another song, I Am One. And this is by Phyllis Whitcliffe.
One, I am only one, but I am one, and I am strong. One, I am only one, but I am one, and I'll carry on. 'Cause one joined with one becomes two, and they are three. Then one joined with one will ever stronger be. I'm only one, but that's all I need to be. Yes, I am one. One drop alone begins the gentle rain. Soon there's a flood that nothing can contain. One must step out or nothing can begin. Two must be brave again and again and again. 3 and 4 and 10 and more, we know that right will win, but it starts with one. One, I am only one, but I am one, and I am strong. One, I am only one, but I am one, and I'll carry on. 'Cause one joined with one becomes two, and then they're three. And one joined with one will ever stronger be. I'm only one, but that's all I need to be. One begins with me. Yes, one begins with me.
Good morning, everyone. Phyllis wrote the words and the music. Isn't that absolutely beautiful? And thank you. And thank you, Reverend Manasseh, for inviting me. I'm Reverend Karen Williams, and to do the service or the talk today. I want you to know a little secret to start with, that the Jewish scholars in their ancient scriptures have known for a very, very long time. And that is that God is funny. Now, that's a little too much levity for those Christian scholars and their big Bibles. But there's actually a Yiddish proverb that says, "We plan, God laughs." I cannot match the humorous story and wit of our Reverend here and how she starts off her talks. And Leanne mentioned last week how much she enjoyed it. I'm not even going to begin to try to match that, but I am going to give you an entire comedy. Now, the comedy I'm talking about is like you've gone to the theater and you have actors on the stage. And it's a comedy much like if you think of Shakespeare's Much Ado About Nothing or The Midsummer Night's Dream. So we have 4 characters in our comedy. And they're in the book of Esther. First character is a very inept king, Ahasuerus. The second one is the villain, Haman. And then we have our heroine that we will tell her story today, Esther. And then you have a wise wizard, and his name is Mordecai. What's really interesting about Esther is that it's celebrated since 500 BC. And there actually is a feast to celebrate Esther, and it was this week. Anybody know what it was? Purim. The Feast of Purim. There's something very interesting that you have Esther in the Tanakh, or the Hebrew Scriptures, is in the writings. And then outside of the Tanakh, you have documents and books and volumes called the Talmud. And that's where you will get various different opinions of very scholared rabbis who will read the story and tell you their opinion. And as I've mentioned to this audience before, wherever you have two Jews, you have three opinions. And it's true because they're not afraid to say, well, I think it was this, or I think it was this. So I'm going to tell you the story of Esther, bringing in some of those opinions that you would read in the Talmud. But there's also a little section in the Talmud, it's called the Megillah. The Megillah is the very place that you find the rules for the Feast of Purim. I'm going to give you 5 rules, and then we'll get into the story of Esther. 1, the first rule is, for the Feast of Purim, which was this last Thursday night and through Friday, that you are to do at least 2 mitzvahs. Now, the Jewish faith, they call their commandments or good deeds mitzvahs. Like in the Bible, you may have heard there's 613 of them. There's one for every day, 365 of them are thou shalt not, and then the other ones are positive. But they also look at when you do an act of kindness, that's a mitzvah. So you're required to do 2. Most of the time it's give cash to those in need. The second rule of Purim is that you would prepare food baskets or gift baskets and give them to your friends. Because everyone should have plenty for the Feast of Purim. And of course, you're to give it to your friends. Well, say my name's Esther, and my friends are Rachel, and Ruth, and Hannah, and Abigail, Leah, Deborah. Well, you have to give the basket to all your friends because you don't want Ruth to think that you don't like her as much as you like Rachel, all those. So they give elaborate food baskets. If you can afford the 200% tariff, it had a nice bottle of French wine. If not, you got a $2 chuck in that. You give according to your means. The third rule is you wear costumes. Yes, and for the children, all mask as well, like Halloween. Now, the next rule, are you ready for this? You are commanded to drink. Even the most reserved Jew is required to drink. Not only, it's Megillah, drink, but to get drunk. And the 5th rule is that you are required, when you go to synagogue or you meet together, to read the entire scroll of Esther by night and by day. And when the rabbi reads the story of Esther, whenever the name Esther comes in, you cheer. Yay! And when the name of Haman the villain is mentioned, you boo. Boo. Or if you have an instrument to rattle and make noise. So we don't have enough time today for me to read the entire scroll of Esther. So I brought my picture Bible. And we're going to go through a few pages. And I think, Zeb, you might have my first page here. It might be difficult for you to see, but I want you to be ready, because this page here introduces 3 of the 4 characters that I just talked about. And here it is. Perfect. Thank you, Seb. So, are you ready to cheer when you hear the name of Esther? Well, I have to say it first. Oh, yes. Thank you for that, because only when I read it up there can you cheer. Otherwise, we'll be here all day. For months, Esther, yay! Along with hundreds of beautiful women of Persia, lives in the palace waiting for the king to choose one of them to be his wife. At last, the king makes his choice. Esther, you are my wife, queen of all Persia. I am honored, my lord. But Esther's cousin, Mordecai, he's not invited. No, Mordecai's a good guy. He's part of the wizard. Keep up, Dan. Okay. He's not invited to the wedding. He sits as he does every day at the palace gate, waiting for a chance word about Esther. The queen of Persia is a Jew, but only Esther. And I know that. So let me give you a little background here. We have a king, Ahasuerus, who's very inept. He has great difficulty making decisions. He has things coming on and then takes them off. You never quite know. It's kind of a topsy-turvy world in this king. His very name, Ahasuerus, is his Hebrew name, and it means pain in the head. And Esther is not his... No, you can't cheer at this part. Only out when I read the script. So, now, wherever. That's why you can't cheer at that point. Okay. Esther's not his first wife. In fact, his first queen was Vashti. And what happened was he wants to show his great wealth to all of his province. He actually is in charge of a very large area. From India to Ethiopia, 127 different provinces in Persia at that time. So he wants to show all those governors and important people all his wealth. So he invites them to the palace. He shows them the marble columns, the silver, the gold couches, the velvet purple curtains, and he's drinking the entire time. Well, it takes a while to get to all these important people in his mind. So he basically is drunk for almost 6 months. Well, he asked his wife, Vashti, which in the Talmud, one of the opinions of the rabbi was that she herself had been partying with the women, the prominent women. And he asked her, I want you, Queen Vashti, come and dance for the men. Can you imagine? There was a first lady that didn't have any concern about dancing before men or being nude. But she said no. And she said no because his opinion, that rabbi, is she didn't feel like she looked very good. Well, the king was kind of befuddled. What do you do when your wife has just said no? Whenever there's a gap of power, what happens? A villain comes in. And the villain comes in and says to the king, you can't have your wife disobeying you. That wouldn't look good. Let's just do a decree. Yes, an executive order that would require all women are to stay in their homes and take the language of their husband. Why the language of the husband? Because people cross borders. Sometimes the wife's prominent language is different than her husband. So for centuries, this dismissal, this distortion, this deliberate erasing or demonizing the sacred feminine. And to this day, that still needs to be rectified. Well, they kill the queen. So they find the king wandering the halls of the palace. Why? Because he misses his wife. He's insane. He's mentally insane. And in that wandering in the palace, what do the advisors do? They come up with a plan. Well, we'll just find you another wife. So they search the province. Well, it's not like today where you'd whip out your phone and do like 1,400, dating app swipes, right? No, they had to actually go and find these young, beautiful women all through Persia. Took at least a year, some even say up to 4 years, to do that. And then they bring them all, those young women, to the palace. They literally bathe them in oils and perfumes. So after, that takes a year. After 1 year of Esther being pickled, he chooses her as his wife. Now, Esther, the second character there, she has a secret. She's concealing that she's a Jew. She is actually an orphan. And when she was orphaned, when her both parents died, she went to live, this says cousin, and most of the time they'll say uncle, but certainly a foster father. The foster father was Mordecai. Mordecai was one of the 71 Sanhedrins, meaning that he is a very scholarly, smart, intelligent man, one of 71 throughout the entire world at that time, who would be a part of determining what the Jewish laws are in the courts. But why is he sitting at the palace gate? Because Esther's in the palace. And he knows if he sits at the palace gate, he might catch a word about Esther. Well, one thing that did happen, because he's a very learned man, and again, one of the opinions of a rabbi was that he knew many, many languages. Well, he caught 2 men plotting to kill the king. Mordecai tells Esther, Esther tells the king does a little investigation, his people, and finds it's true. So Mordecai's name was actually written in the record of the king as saving his life. All right, let's meet our 4th character. Seb, if we can go to now, revenge. Now, we're going to be introduced to Haman. And in just a moment, you can boo him down, all right? One of the things that Haman was actually promoted then as the top advisor to the king. And because when he was promoted, like I say, anybody, when there's a gap of power, do you get the lampoon here that's going on this comedy? Whenever there's a lack of power, which you would expect that a king would be astute and decisive and good public service. But when there's not, the villains come in, yes. And the king becomes what we'd say today, Kino, king in name only. Or they use the king as a puppet. If my British grandmother would call it a poodle. So, Haman is in charge of, well, let's say today, would be the department of the greatest ego. Dosh. And in that department, he felt like when he walked the palace grounds or when people met him in the street, they should bow to him. But Mordecai, a very spiritual man, learned in his scriptures, or in the word, it was mostly oral then, that you don't bow to anyone but God. So he didn't go out of the way to offend Mordecai, but Mordecai, he was so angry Haman was so, sorry, now you got me doing it. Haman was so angry that Mordecai would not bend the knee. That is where we pick this up. What does he do? He and his administration is about revenge. So, here we go. Boo when you hear the name Haman. Angered because Mordecai will not bow before him, Haman prepares his revenge. There's a race of people in your kingdom, sir, who do not obey you. For your safety, they should be destroyed. Give me permission to make a law that will rid Persia of them. You are a loyal man, Haman. Here is my ring. Use it to seal to show that your law is my law. Haman. Say at once. Write this down and see that each governor in the kingdom receives a copy of it. Every Jew in Persia is to be destroyed. On the 13th day of the 12th month, those who kill the Jews may keep as rewards all the money and the goods and the Jews they kill. Ooh, this is serious stuff. It's an executive order to basically kill the Jewish immigrants. You know, the Jews, when they had to flee their home country, Jerusalem, they thought they would be safe under the Persian Empire. But what they found now from the villain is they're not safe. Not only are they not safe, there's a date that's set. And that date, you know how Haman said it? He cast lots or dice. Whatever the dice came up with, that was the date that was chosen. His very name, the very word Purim, it's not a Hebrew word, actually translates to lots. Well, what do you think when Mordecai read this and was given the order? He dresses in mourning clothes outside the gate, and he's pouring ashes over him because his people, because he would not bend the knee. Even though, say there's 100 people in the street, 99 of them bowed to Haman, but Mordecai, the one that didn't, that's the concentration that Haman had. So what happens is Esther's looking out the palace window, and she says, there's something wrong here with Mordecai. Ask her servant, go, find out what it is. The servant goes, and he finds out, well, doesn't the queen know? We are all going to die. Go, tell her she has to see the king and save the Jews. The servant goes and delivers that message. And now, what does Esther do? Do we have that third slide here? Yes. Esther gets word. Thank you. Well, she's gotten word that Mordecai, her foster father, wants her to go see the king. But Haman actually controlled who could see the king. So if somebody went to see the king without being invited, automatically they would die. Esther knows she didn't ask for any of this, and married a drunken murderer. So her response here is, I go to see the king? Mordecai knows that anyone who appears before the king without being invited is subject to death. And I have not been called to see the king for 30 days. So then she sends the servant back to Mordecai to tell him what she just said. Now, more frightened than ever, the servant reports back to Mordecai. The most important line right now in all of the book of Esther. But Mordecai says, tell the queen I understand her fear, but tell her too that perhaps God raised her up to the palace for such a time as this. And then she decides she will see the king. And this is, in fact, the picture Bible. I'm sorry to say this, but 1,000 words would be better than the picture, all right, at this point. Because what's not said here is that when she gets word back, and the King James Version says that Mordecai looks or says to Esther, but you are born for just such a time. She's thinking about that. Now, she has a secret, and it's concealed. She's wearing a mask. Will she reveal her true, authentic self, that she's a Jew? It could mean death for her. So what does she do? She goes and she calls for 3 days of prayer and fast. She is thinking about, am I born for just such a time? What should I do? It reminds me of Frodo in The Lord of the Rings with the wizard Gandalf. And I actually wrote it down here because I want to be sure to get the words right. You know, he has this destructive ring. And he says, I wish the ring had never come to me. I wish none of this had happened. And then Gandalf says to him, the wizard, "So do we all who live to see such times. But that is not for them to decide. All we need to decide is what to do with the time that is given us." So in prayer, in fasting, in meditation, Esther says, "Spirit of truth, what would you have me do? Where would you go to? Where would you have me go? Whom should I speak to? What should I say?" And it's after that that she puts on her royal robes and she goes to see the king. The king is happy to see her, gives her the scepter on her right shoulder, saying, "Well, come, come. I'm so glad to see you." And of course, she's all smelling good and perfumed. And at that point, the king asked her, "Well, what do you want, Esther?" Now, think about it. What would you do if you're in that situation as a woman? "Oh, you just look so fine. You're so handsome. You're so strong. I just want a little tiny little favor from you. Would you just sign this document? You know, because I kind of like the Jewish immigrants. I think that they're good for the economy. Can't you just do this?" No, she didn't do that. That's why I'm convinced she went within and got amazing divine strength. Because what Esther did is she asked the king, "I would love to have dinner with you. Not only dinner with you, can you invite Haman?" And of course, Haman hears this and he thinks, "Am I not over the greatest department, doing whatever I want with the king? The queen loves me too." But on his way to tell his wife that he'd been invited to this amazing dinner at the palace with both the king and queen, he gets a glimpse of Mordecai. "Before I go to that dinner, I'm going to go ahead and build the structure to kill Mordecai, the gallows." They go to a dinner. They have a great time. The wine flows freely. And the king's like, "But Esther, I get a sense that you might want something." I do. "Let's do it again. Another dinner. Be sure, though, you invite Haman." Okay, another night, lots of wine, great night. They're relaxing. And then the king says, "I'll give you half my kingdom. What is it you would like, Esther?" And she says, "I would like to save, there is a certain man who wants to kill me and my family." "What?" Both of them. "What? Who could this certain man be that has this cruel plan?" And Esther points to Haman. The king can't handle it. He just leaves. He's angry. And then they put a cloth over Haman's head because the very gallows that he had built for Mordecai is going to be used for Haman. Do you get the topsy-turviness? You never know what's cursed, what's blessed. First, Mordecai is cursed. He's going to face death, and all the Jews, because he wouldn't bend the knee. But he actually ends up taking the position of Haman. And Haman thought he had all this power. And then he's so blessed. And then he's cursed. This is the topsy-turvy world that we live in. What can we walk away from the story of Esther? During these very troubled times, let me just tell you, look back at those rules for Purim. What do? You continue to do mitzvahs. Wherever you can, continue to do acts of kindness. Give money for those in need. Be sure that you're sharing whatever you can with your community, whether it's here at Unity or it's with family. Be sure you're sharing. Oh, and every now and then, just get away from it. Pretend you're somebody you're not. Put a costume on. It's okay. Have a mask on if you need to get away from it all. But at some point, you're going to have to go within, and you're going to have to remove that mask because the feast is over and the time is over. And at that point, what was concealed would need to be revealed. And I know that Esther depended on her divine strength at that moment, not her own strength. Her own strength would have been, how can I manipulate this a little bit and get what I want? God's strength. I'm going to come in, and I have listened to, what do I do? Where do I go? And she didn't need to know the whole plan. I don't know if she did or not. All I know is she did the next right thing. And, yeah, go ahead and drink. It's really not about getting drunk. What they're saying is be happy. In the midst of all the trouble and the topsy-turvy stuff, and you're not sure if you're cursed or if you're blessed, or if you're blessed if you're cursed, God is working behind the scenes. And the amazing thing about it is the name of God is not even written in the book of Esther. Not once. But he's working behind the scenes. And we all have the villains in our life. And they get noisy. And you want to boo them down because you want to not hear that voice in your ear, that ego. You want to hear the strength of the divine. Yay. And cheer that on. And most important of all, you might just be the Mordecai who at that point can only say to someone else, but for just such a time, your ability, your strength in the divine can save the world we live in. And he would just hold space and hold that center. He couldn't do anything. But don't underestimate him praying and fasting and holding Esther in his heart. And then listen when somebody tells you, but for just such a time, we were born. Thank you very much.
All right. We've got our meditation song.
From within, I let my heart begin to see eternity. Turn within, and now I can begin to see the face of God. Face of God is all I am, and face of God is all I see. From within, I let my heart begin to see eternity. Turn within, and now I can begin to see the face of God. Face of God is all I am, and face of God is all I see. Face of God is all I am, and face of God is all I see.
Thank you, Reverend Karen. Thank you, Phyllis. Thank you, Unity Music Team. That was lovely. Let's begin this meditation by getting comfortable in our chairs. Allow your chair to absorb your full weight. And let's take a few deep cleansing breaths, in through our nose, out through our mouth, with a sigh. tension that's in your body. And for this meditation, we're going to connect with an aspect of God, which is strength, divine strength. Let's breathe in that divine strength. Breathe it in through your crown and into your heart chakra, and out throughout your body. Breathe in divine strength. Let that divine strength flow throughout your body. Feel it in every area, every organ, every gland, every tissue, every system, every molecule, every atom. Divine strength. Feel that divine strength help you release whatever is not strength within your body. Feel your body become stronger. Feel your consciousness become more expanded. And I thank Michael Murdad for this version of the Lord's Prayer that I'm going to read to you. My Mother, Father God, whose presence is heaven and is within all life, sacred and holy is your name, the divine within me. Your kingdom and will are manifested here and now through each loving choice I make, just as it is in heaven. Bring to me this and every day all that you will to draw me closer to my remembrance of the divine within me, and teach me to be as forgiving as you. I joyfully choose your holy voice as my guide through moments of both inspiration and challenge, thus receiving all the gifts you intend for me. I gratefully affirm that my will is no longer apart from your divine will, but instead your will is my will. Therefore, I choose to rise above my ego so that you can deliver me from all illusionary forces that seem to manipulate me in body, mind, or soul. I vow to be more of God's kingdom and to extend this kingdom each day. Breathe in the strength of God and exhale it as a blessing into your entire body. Breathe in the strength of God and exhale it as a blessing into your entire energy field. Breathe in the strength of God and exhale it as a blessing into this entire community. Breathe in the strength of God and exhale it as a blessing into the entire world, the entire universe. And now allow yourself to fully soak in the strength of God as we go into the silence. Start to slowly come back. Stretch and integrate this experience into your body. Stretch it in. Slowly open your eyes. And remember that you can connect to the strength of God anytime you want to. You need only call on it. Thank you. Namaste.
In this and every moment, I am safe and all is well. In this and every moment, I am safe and all is well. I am held, I am whole, I surrender to it all. When I trust and let go, then I know that all is well. All is well. In this and every moment, I am safe and all is well. In this and every moment, I am safe and all is well.
All right, Mary Ellen's going to give us a little of her story histories.
It's an honor to tell you a little about the life of the brilliant woman Ida B. Wells Barnett, a pioneer of American journalism and social justice. I only have a few minutes, so I want to share some of the seminal events early in her life that contributed to her history-changing work. And what I'd like you to know especially is that amidst extreme racism in the American South, Ida B. Wells Barnett chose to document and spread the truth about the lynchings of African Americans. She did so at the risk of her own life and freedom. She asked questions, listened to stories, collected data, and wrote about the terrorism and injustices that she and other African Americans endured. Ida B. Wells was born in 1862 to Lizzie and James Wells in Holly Springs, Mississippi. The Wells family were enslaved to a man named Spires Balling, whose home appears in this photo, and this home now serves as a museum to Ida B. Wells Barnett. 6 months after her birth, the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation granted the Wells family their freedom, but slavery was replaced by the Black Codes and oppressive Jim Crow laws, which terrorized African Americans and held them to the bottom of society. Wells's parents instilled in her an importance of education. Her father, James, became a trustee at Rust College, and Ida was able to study there as a young teenager. But at 16 years old, Wells's parents died in a yellow fever epidemic, along with her infant brother. She then became the primary caretaker for her remaining 6 siblings. Wells passed her teaching exam at the age of 18 and became a school teacher. She was able to support her family financially and moved them to Memphis, Tennessee. One day, she was commuting to work and purchased a first-class ticket for the journey. The conductor approached her on the train and told her to move to the smoking car. She refused, and he forcibly removed her from the train. Wells sued the Ohio Railway Company for maltreatment and received $500 compensation. The Tennessee State Supreme Court later overturned the decision. In addition to teaching, Wells began to write for several Black newspapers about the everyday injustices African Americans experienced in the South. She became one of the only women at the time to write on race relations, and one of only about 15 Black female journalists in the country. By 25 years old, Wells's articles were published in newspapers all over the country, including the Indianapolis World. She was invited to write for a Black-owned newspaper in Memphis, the Free Speech and Highlight. Wells accepted the job under the condition that she become the editor and part owner. She shortened the name of the paper to Free Speech and continued to call out racial injustices. At 27, Wells was fired from her teaching position after she exposed the poor conditions of the Memphis school system. At 30 years old, Wells's close friend, Thomas Moss, was murdered, along with 2 other men, Calvin McDowell and Will Stewart. Moss was the owner of the People's Grocery Store in Memphis. Some children had been playing marbles outside the store when they got into an argument. One of the children was white, the other was black. The father of the white child stepped in and began beating the black child. Will Stewart and Calvin McDowell stepped in, and a fight ensued. The black men were arrested and put in jail. In the South at that time, it was commonplace for white mobs to seize African American men at night from jail and lynch them. Wells investigated the murder of her friend and wrote about it, poking holes in the official story and revealing the racially motivated murders. She wrote, "It is with no pleasure that I have dipped my hands in the corruption here exposed. Somebody must show that the Afro-American race is more sinned against than sinning, and it seems to have fallen upon me to do so." In response to her article, the Free Speech Office was set on fire by a mob of white men. Wells was out of town at the time, and for her safety and the safety of others associated with the paper, she did not return to Memphis. Instead, she began to travel, investigating lynchings and writing articles. She was meticulous and presented her investigative journalism in many booklets. Wells eventually moved to Chicago and married attorney Ferdinand L. Barnett, who owned the Conservator newspaper. She added his surname to hers, becoming Ida B. Wells Barnett. She later became the editor and owner of the newspaper. Ferdinand and Ida had 6 children total, 2 from Barnett's previous marriage. Wells Barnett continued to research, write, and travel, focusing her work on anti-lynching activism, Black leadership, and women's suffrage. Ida B. Wells Barnett started writing her autobiography, Crusade for Justice, in 1828, but she died in 1931 from kidney disease. Although she did not live to see the civil rights movement, she laid the foundations for its activism. Her autobiography was published posthumously in 1970. Alfreda Duster, Wells's youngest daughter and editor of the autobiography, said about her mother, "She fought a lonely and almost single-handed fight with the single-mindedness of a crusader, long before men or women of any race entered the arena, and the measure of success she achieved goes far beyond the credit she has been given in the history of the country." There is so much I haven't told you about this incredible woman, but my time is up. I was feeling really sad after learning about the life of Ida B. Wells Barnett and looking at the racial terrorism that is still happening today. It makes me angry that our country hasn't progressed further in a century and a half since her birth. As a white American, I humbly ask my fellow white Americans not to erase our history, but to learn from it. We are not the victims of this story. Many of our ancestors were the perpetrators of these crimes. Let this truth break your heart. Let yourself grieve about it. Then let's do the work of repairing this wound. And if you're questioning what I'm saying, I'll remind you that the current administration running the United States government is actively working to erase our history. They are censoring these words: allyship, anti-racist, discrimination, indigenous community, inequality, ethnicity, injustice, race, segregation, among so many other words that might be construed as diverse, equitable, or inclusive. We should use these words as much as possible to tell the truth. All of us can honor Ida B. Wells Barnett by supporting Black journalists and Black journalism. We can poke holes in the official stories. We can become the investigative journalists in our own communities. We can honor Ida B. Wells Barnett by connecting with and supporting Black Lives Matter. We can follow the leadership of African American women. And we can listen to our loved ones of Black and brown skin and believe them when they tell us about the racialized terror they experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Ellen. We're going to prepare for offering at this time. We prepare to show our gratitude. We continue to receive several ways to give to Unity. Checks and cash are always welcome. Or you can text a give button on the screen or donate button on the website. As the offering bags are passed, you may want to bless the bags so that the contents within can grow. If you are new to us, please fill out the blue visitor form on the back of the seat. We love to have your opinions. And prayer request forms are also on the back of the seat. So would you please join me in giving our affirmation of abundance? Okay. I am an abundant being in an abundant universe. I am not dependent on people or situations for my good. God within is the source of my supply. I always have something to give. I give. I expect the best. I give my best. And I now attract the best in every experience.
I am spirit-led, spirit-fed, everywhere and always I am spirit-led. I am spirit-led, spirit-fed, everywhere and always I am spirit-led, flowing like a river of peace. I am nature's wandering charm. Love cannot be added to me. I am made complete in the divine. I am spirit-led, spirit-fed, everywhere and always I am spirit-led. I am spirit-led, spirit-fed, everywhere and always I am spirit-led. There's been every day, like a beautiful song, as I'm choosing my way. There's a voice inside to guide me along. I am spirit-led, spirit-fed, everywhere and always I am spirit-led. I am spirit-led, spirit-fed, everywhere and always I am spirit-led. Everywhere and always I am spirit-led.
Readers, come on back up, and we will please join me in blessing this. Call back. So, divine love flowing through me blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. And I am grateful. Thank you. All right, we have some announcements. I'll try to make it quick so we can get out. There'll be another session of A Course in Miracles today at noon with Wendy Wonderly and Karen Williams. The third session of our Spiritual Economics book study group will meet next week at 11:45 in the chapel. You don't have to attend you can just come. You know, if you miss some, don't worry about it. Kroger card links. If you shop at Kroger, you can link up your Kroger card to us so that every time you buy groceries, the center receives a small percent of your grocery bill as a painless and easy donation. Sierra Reed is, I think she's in the lobby, I don't know, but she'd be glad to help setting that up if you need help. Youth Sunday, please plan to be here on the last Sunday of this month, the 30th, as our young people will provide most of the service on that day as a youth service. Also, daily inspiration will begin again on Monday. Reverend Manasseh has been off this week. The drumming circle will not meet this week. They'll meet in the week after spring break. Also, yoga. We're going to take a break from yoga for about a month and then start back, I think it's the third weekend in April. So that said, unless anybody else have anything to add, we're going to say the prayer for protection. Please join me. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. Please join in the closing song, Let There Be Peace on Earth. We'll just circle the wagons and here.